Welcome aboard. If you are dialed in for our latest legal lowdown, we are going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, not A1, as some people might say. It's not steak sauce, to draft business documents. So we'll just give another couple of minutes here for folks to dial in, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. So hang tight with us. While we're waiting for some people to dial in, want to take this moment to acknowledge Robert Redford passed away either late last night or early this morning. Feel like it's a change of an era. He's defined so many of the great movies that I remember watching over the years. So that's certainly a big loss for our the movie community. Always liked many of the movies that he was in. So he did pass away here recently, and we've released our newsletter for September. Um, if you have a chance to take a look at that, we'd greatly appreciate that. Maybe Claire can post it in the chat, like a link to the newsletter. There's lots of information in there. In light of the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, we thought that it was important to provide some information about the First Amendment and what those rights really mean and the restrictions on them. So I thought that was an area of interest for folks, in addition to a variety of other topics that we always address that we hope you find interesting and useful in your particular life. We also have a little link on there and an invitation to vote to bring back um, some of the more popular stamps for next year. One of them, of course, is one of Pittsburgh's favorite sons, Mr. Rogers. So you can certainly vote to bring back Mr. Rogers' stamp with the king on the stamp. But if there are some other ones on there too that you can certainly pick out. The Star Trek one is always one of my favorites as well. But give it a shot. You can go ahead and put your vote in as to which of those historic stamps that you might want to bring back um, for another go around. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with our webinar today? My name is Mike Fiffik, and I'm the managing partner here at Fiffik Law Group. We have offices in Pittsburgh and also suburban Philadelphia. And I've been practicing law since 1992. I lose track of it. So 30 plus years. And I have represented businesses that entire time. And all different kinds of businesses, from startup businesses to um, folks that are just ramping up their business, to folks that are midstream, and then also helping business with succession planning and selling their businesses, helping folks buy businesses, in a wide variety of businesses. So seen a lot of different applications of business in the world, and that's what I try to bring to bear for you in these lowdown series of webinars that we do once a month. And we also have a weekly legal lowdown that we are trying to empower small businesses. So if you'd like to receive our weekly lowdown, which is a one topic email every week, there's a QR code there that you can scan and subscribe to our legal lowdown once a month. We also have a YouTube channel where you will find all of the recordings of our lowdown series on a wide variety of topics. So I think we've done 8 of them this month. We took a break in August because it was a busy month for me on vacation and moving my last daughter into Penn State. So we didn't do one that month, but we have 8 other ones that we've done this year on a variety of business topics. So hopefully you have a chance to check those out. Maybe there's something that will help you in there. So let's move right into our agenda today, AI and small business. You know, AI is something that if you're a small business person and you sort of heard about it, but you really haven't dug in to learn a little bit about it and how it can help your business, well, it's time well spent, I will tell you. Technology just in general, I think allows small businesses to become more competitive in today's fast-paced economy. And AI is just another technology that small businesses really should be spending time understanding how they'll help, right? It can really make you more efficient. And as a business owner, especially if you're a single business owner, like that you're the only person that operates the business, or maybe you only have a couple of staff members, it can really help you do a whole lot more in a lot less time. AI, amongst its many benefits for your business, and this webinar isn't going to be intended to be a whole survey on everything that AI can do for your business. We're going to talk about it as it relates to drafting business contracts in particular, but just in general, AI can help you make better business decisions. We're going to talk a little bit about that. It can help you create business content, marketing content in particular, newsletters, blog posts, posts for your social media. It's really, really good to create that kind of content. Images that are compelling, excellent. It's an excellent tool for that kind of stuff. It can help you brainstorm on issues that you're facing and maybe even collaborate to get a little bit of information, right? If you don't know a whole lot about a topic, maybe you can use an AI tool to help you better understand not only the topic, but the questions that you should be asking to get you sort of smartened up on something that you are otherwise unfamiliar with. There are lots of AI tools that are intended to improve customer service, to help your connectivity in an automated kind of a way with your customers, or to turn things quicker to produce them for your customers, and to help you with increased efficiency. So those are just some of the things that AI can do for small business. And I encourage you, it's time well spent for you to spend some time understanding AI and what's out there so that it can help your business. Might seem scary. It's a big topic. It seems like it's moving at lightning speed, and it is, right? It's developing very, very quickly, but it's not too late. You really should dig in and find out a little bit more about how it can help your business. But today I'm going to talk about AI as it relates to small business owners and their contracts. And if you've heard me talk about this before, you know that in my view, business contracts are very important, right? They are the bedrock of virtually every business transaction and relationship that a small business has. Contracts provide a lot of services for businesses. They serve a lot of purposes, right? They provide clarity and certainty regarding the rights and responsibilities of your business and whoever it is that's on the other side of a transaction or a relationship. You don't just have to have the handshake deal, so to speak. That's kind of something that is definitely in the past. And for a lot of businesses where you never see your customers and maybe they're all online, it's really vitally important to have clarity about rights and responsibilities. You can draft contracts to allocate risks and limit the potential liability for your business, right? If something goes south, you can limit the exposure of that claim as it relates to your business. So very important. Contracts give you the ability to enforce them in the event the other side doesn't do what they're supposed to do, or they don't do it in a way that you think fulfills the spirit of the contract. And it can specify what your recourse is, what damages that you can get. If that customer doesn't pay you, you can sue them not only for the amount that they owe you, but maybe they have to reimburse you your attorney's fees or costs, or you can get interest on the amount that they owe you. You can build all of those types of things into your contract. If there is a dispute, you can agree with the other side. This is how we're going to resolve disputes in the event that they arise. Maybe you want to avoid going to court because going to court is expensive and there's a lot of delay. It's not a very good way to solve disputes in an ongoing business relationship. Once you go to court, usually the relationship is over, maybe even prematurely, and it's not a good way to solve this problem. So you may find that there's another better way to try to resolve disputes and salvage the relationship and get the benefit of your bargain. And then finally, for small business owners, everybody is interested in making sure that their personal assets are protected from claims that arise out of their business. And contracts certainly give you the ability to do that. And conversely, they can also expose your personal assets to business liabilities, especially if you're signing personal guarantees as a business owner. And we did a lowdown webinar on personal guarantees, so I encourage you to check out the replay on that on our YouTube channel. So lots of types of business contracts are out there, right? Operating agreements. Every LLC, limited liability company, should have an operating agreement. Those are the rules of the road on how you're going to run the LLC. Consulting agreements, personal guarantees. I had mentioned shareholder or partnership agreements. How you're going to buy out a partner if they pass away or they become disabled, so that you're not in business with their spouse or their kids. If you have a place of business, you've probably signed a commercial lease. That's a type of a business contract. Loan agreements. If you've borrowed money or lent money, you probably have those. You certainly have agreements with your vendors, perhaps employment agreements. Maybe you are a franchisee. You've got a franchise with Subway or some other business like that. So there are lots and lots of different examples of business contracts that are out there. They're everywhere for small business owners. So where do your contracts come from, right? Typically, they could be free, like do a old-fashioned Google search for a promissory note, and you might turn up a wide variety of forms that are out there, or drafts of personal guarantee or loan agreements that somebody else has signed in the past. Some contracts come from the government, like the IRS or Corporations Bureau. They produce those types of documents in some respects. Maybe you purchase them online with a vendor that is in the business of producing agreements for a particular line of work. So if you're a contractor, and especially if you do bid work, but maybe even do work for a larger business, you may be using the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, contractor or subcontract agreements. Those are very common in the construction industry, and that's where you get them. Or if you are buying or selling real estate in Pennsylvania, you're probably using the standard agreement of sale for either residential or commercial property that is published by the PA Association of Realtors, another place that you get them. Perhaps you have a subscription to a service that can provide, again, topical contracts, like the Society for Human Resource Management. They produce lots of HR, right? Human resources or employment related forms, like employee manuals or COBRA notices and things of that nature. You get them there. Maybe you have other people's contracts. You could hire your own attorney, which I think is a great idea. But I have to add to this list AI, right? Because that's now, in the reality of things, that's another place where you can acquire business contracts, right? You can ask your AI tool to draft a business contract about whatever type of a transaction it is that you want. All of those sample contracts that I had mentioned to you, the examples of contracts, right? Let's go back there real quick. Any of these, you can ask an AI tool to draft you an operating agreement or a personal guarantee or a commercial lease or a loan agreement. AI will draft these documents if you ask it to draft these documents. Seems very, very tempting for small business owners to do that, right? Why hire a lawyer and pay them lots of money when I can use ChatGPT or somebody like that to draft these contracts for me? Well, there are risks in doing that kind of a thing. And this isn't just me, a lawyer, trying to protect my business so that people will still hire me to draft contracts. I advise a lot of business owners. I want to make sure that they make good decisions about their business. That's literally what I'm all about. I have a heart for entrepreneurs in this world. So I want you to get some good advice, and I want you to be aware that there are some risks in using an AI tool to draft your contracts. Here they are, right? Number one, every AI tool is going to tell you, don't rely on it. Okay. So the AI tool is going to tell you right off the bat something like this: I am an AI tool and I cannot provide legal advice. maybe you should listen to it. This is for informational purposes only. Contract law is complex, and you should consult with an attorney for your specific situation. So the AI tool itself is going to tell you, you really shouldn't rely on me alone to draft your business contract. So right up front, if you think that it's going to give you good advice, then heed the advice that it gives you and don't use it by itself. AI contracts, AI also lacks legal expertise, right? In being able to draft contracts. Um, it can't interpret a complex factual situation. And, a lot of people think that contracts are kind of like cookie cutter, right? Every situation is exactly the same. And so there's one contract that is going to fit every factual situation. I'm telling you that just is rare. Okay. There are templates out there that you can get online for, let's call it a non-disclosure agreement, right? There are templates out there for that kind of a thing, but they're a starting point, right? They, they address a lot of the common things that need to be addressed in those situations, but they're by no means tailored to the particular situation. So, the AI tool really can't catch some of the nuances of whatever the particular situation is, right? And it's going to miss out and not understand the practical implications of including provisions in a contract as it relates to the parties who, are involved. It might not even know who to put as parties to the contract, and you might miss out on naming somebody that should be part of the contract, and that now your contract isn't really worth, a whole lot. AI also doesn't account for jurisdiction specific legal requirements. It's a large language type of a tool, right? So it's going to go out onto the internet generally and look for information that is going to return what it thinks is a response. Well, it might also return a mishmash of things from a wide variety of states or localities, and it's just not very good at accounting for jurisdiction-specific legal requirements. So, for example, you could ask it to draft you're hiring a contractor to do something on your home, and it may not necessarily pick up on the fact that in Pennsylvania there are specific statutes that speak to what needs to be in a home improvement contract. And it might miss out on some of those things because it just doesn't know it or understand exactly what to do, or the prompts that you put in. And we're going to talk about the importance of prompts later. The prompts that you put in are not specific enough or not good enough to really return a very good product that fits your specific situation. So, these are some of the risks of using AI to draft business contracts. AI can also creates the risk of critical errors and omissions, right? AI generated contracts may include ambiguous, contradictory, missing clauses, right? That aren't detected until legal disputes arise, right? I'll give you an example where we recently received an AI generated inquiry from a client claiming that there were additional security filing requirements with a transaction. And after we looked into the claim, we discovered that the AI model was pulling up information from a proposed change to the law from over 10 years ago, along with various legal papers on the effects of such proposal. However, the proposal was never enacted. So, a common example of this would be the business owner reporting requirements that were supposed to go into effect in the federal government, and they did go into effect for a period of time, but that were ultimately overruled. It was sort of fuzzy about how that happened. I mean, the AI tool may tell you that you still have to comply with those things when in reality you probably don't. So this is a risk that there are going to be errors or omissions because whatever it's pulling from isn't exactly right. Many AI systems are not regularly updated with evolving laws and regulations, resulting non-compliance with applicable legal standards to whatever your situation is. So there's no guarantee that when you're using ChatGPT or any of the other tools that are out there that they're updated, right? They don't make that representation to you that you're going to be getting the most, that the whatever it's giving to you, the results that it gives to you are based upon the most recent updates that are out there in the world. So you might really have a big miss there. Um, Many AI tools rely on templates or playbooks that could have a lot of outdated information or mistakes, or maybe that they're just pulling from bad documents, right? They're going out there again, they're limited to what's available on the internet, what's available that's been fed into them. And a lot of it might be complete junk that's out there. So, it's going to go and maybe it looks at 10 different promissory notes in order to prepare your promissory note, but the 10 that they looked at are bad promissory notes, or were drafted for a real particular situation that might miss might omit some other things, right? Whenever I'm negotiating contracts for a client with another attorney, sometimes we negotiate things out of a particular agreement that would otherwise commonly be in the agreement. Or maybe I put it in the original version of it, but it didn't make it at the end of the day because the parties negotiated the omission of something like an indemnification clause or a confession of judgment clause. And if the AI tool is looking at that end product document as an example of what that contract should look like, right? It's going to miss some things that I would have otherwise included in my first go round. So you never know what exactly it's looking for. It might just be missing. Here it is. Key provisions such as indemnification, intellectual property protections, data processing clauses are absent or incorrect, leaving the business exposed. So, there just might be a lot of things missing in the contract for the particular situation or the particular parties. It's risky to think that whatever it is that you're getting from the AI tool is everything that you should be thinking about and including in your business contract. Um, the contract obviously can't be customized for the particular situation. Here's an example. We received comments on a contract from a client who had run the agreement through an AI tool, right? And I think that that's totally okay for any business owner to run a particular contract through an AI tool. In fact, I think that's a good idea. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The comments that the AI tool returned whenever it reviewed the contract were kind of surface level grammatical and formatting edits, but it really didn't consider the substance of the contract or analyze how the terms might align with the client's business objectives in that particular transaction, or identify terms that were not customary for the type of transaction. If what's in a contract, you may not, I mean, what you put in a contract is informed by what is customary given the circumstances of the transaction, right? And there are some things that you just wouldn't include in certain scenarios because it doesn't make any sense or would be, going way overboard, or something that is just not necessary or even applicable in a particular situation. It's really difficult for the AI tool to understand all of the nuances and complexities of whatever that business relationship is, what the objectives are. It's just going to produce something that's a little bit cookie cutter for the situation. It really might miss the mark. It's just not the best that it could be. It might be just okay. Probably better than no contract at all, right? Probably better than no contract at all, but probably not much better than that, right? Um, the the document itself might even contradict intended business goals, or miss some strategic insights, along the way. You may have some type of an agreement with the person that you're talking to in the business transaction. You have a set of understandings about what the deal is going to be, and you ask the AI tool to produce a document. Maybe you don't read it, maybe you don't understand it very well. If you do read it and understand it, maybe you're not sure how to edit it. so that it makes sense before you send it to the other side. And maybe what you've sent to the other side is contrary to the terms that the intentions that you had already sort of had a handshake on, that you were going to then document over, and it could really set the other side off or disrupt the trust that's going on between the two of you in the negotiations. That's something that can really happen, where somebody gets a document and said, "Hey, this isn't what we talked about. This is inconsistent with what I thought we had agreed to." And now all of a sudden they're upset. And, it might cause your deal to go sideways if you produce a document that's just inconsistent with whatever it is that you talked about, or introduces new terms that the other side wasn't expecting. And now all of a sudden, those are some terms that are really important to the other side that are off-putting, and it causes a ripple in the ongoing dialogue between the two parties. So there are a lot of problems that can happen there. There are privacy concerns with AI tools, right? Whenever you put information into an AI tool, you're really uploading information to these AI platforms, and you really don't have any assurance that as to what they're going to do with the information that you provide to them. So it could be that you're uploading some sensitive business information to this third-party AI tool, and is it private? Is it going to be information that the AI tool then processes and then regurgitates for somebody else that puts a similar request in, and it produces that? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns about privacy when it comes to AI tools, but if you're putting it in there, basically you shouldn't expect it to have an expectation that it's ultimately going to be private, information. And then finally, I think if you get a contract, and this has been true for a long time, right? When people get some kind of a contract that they find online, and an AI generated contracts are exactly the same, because it's a contract that looks complete, is a nice and neat format and all that kind of a thing, it may give you a false sense of security that it sort of fits the bill for you, right? But it might not. There are contracts that are signed all the time that miss the mark on some very important issues that cause deals to go sideways. Case in point, right? I had somebody that was a client that was buying an escape room from the person who owned it. And they signed a contract to buy the escape room. And it was the business broker's sort of cookie cutter business purchase agreement that they use for basically every transaction, right? Very cookie cutter document that they just change the names and the numbers and go with it every time. Well, the problem is that the seller had sold gift cards, and those are a big liability. That when you buy the business, if somebody comes in 2 months after you bought the business with a gift card, you have to honor it, but you don't get any money, right? The other person got the money, but they don't have to provide the service. You don't get any of the money, but you have to provide the service, and it costs you money to do that. And that ended up, the dollar value of that liability on the gift cards was, six figures. And that ended up being a real problem in that transaction for the parties that ultimately caused the deal to crash. The parties had a false sense of security that the form agreement that the broker provided to them was going to fit the bill, but it didn't really. It should have, because it didn't address this factual nuance to the deal, that caused the deal to crater. And AI generated contracts can do exactly the same thing. People have a lot of false sense of security in believing that if I have a contract, therefore I'm golden, right? But there's a lot of things that happen outside the four corners of the contract that really matter as to whether that contract is going to serve its purpose or be enforceable. That's a big problem. A lot of people end up finding out about that in the wrong way. So it can really end up costing you a lot of money, or you thought you got something, but you really didn't. So I have some suggestions for you if you're a business owner as it relates to using AI in connection with your business contracts, right? Here's how I think that you should use it. Number one, I think you can use AI to help you make informed decisions. Use AI to research the key issues that you should understand about a particular business transaction. So if you're entering into a loan agreement, you can ask AI, I want to sign a promissory note. What are the things that I should be thinking about? What are the terms that I should include in the promissory note? What are the negotiating points that I need to be aware of? What should a promissory note have in it? What are the typical provisions that a promissory note would have in it? That's just a very, very simple example, but it could be any of those agreements, whether it's a buy-sell agreement between shareholders of a business or a commercial lease or a vendor agreement of some kind. You can use AI to give you information so that you can make a more informed decision about whatever is going on with that business transaction. AI is really good at summarizing documents. A lot of business folks, when they get a long contract, they don't want to read it all. I get it. We're all busy. And, 2 or 3 pages into a single spaced 10-point type document can really make your brain hurt. And you lose interest in reading through it really fast. And you don't understand it. Maybe it's filled with a lot of legal mumbo jumbo in there. So AI is a great tool to upload that document into AI and have it summarize it, right? And ask it to summarize the key concepts, the most important provisions in the agreement that you should be paying attention to. It's really good at summarizing that so that you don't have to read the entire document. I think you should, but if you really don't have the time, or you want sort of a crutch as to exactly where to go in the document and what you really need to be paying attention to, AI can really summarize it and direct your attention to the key points, and just reduce the amount of time that you have to spend looking at these agreements. The AI tool can explain or even analyze documents for you, right? It can identify language that is unclear to you or complex language and explain its meaning in simpler terms. You know, I've mentioned a couple of these before. Something like an indemnification clause. I wouldn't expect a business owner to understand what indemnification means. That's a legal term of art, but it's important for you to understand it because it places a lot of liability on you as a business owner. Maybe you're agreeing to only be indemnified by the other side for their gross negligence. Well, what is that? I could say gross negligence, and you can say, is that uh, slipping in your dog's poop on the floor? I mean, that's gross and it's negligent. Or, what does it really mean from a legal standpoint? It can help you understand those legal terms of art. What's a tenant estoppel in a lease transaction? There are lots of different provisions in there. What's a personal guarantee? What's a subordination agreement? Does it mean you get tied up if you breach the agreement? No. Those are just things that I wouldn't expect any business owner to understand, but AI can help you understand them better, right? And you can plug those in as you're reading it, or it summarizes the document. You can say, tell me a little bit more about what subordination really means to me in this particular transaction. You can even ask the AI tool, think of the AI tool as a person that you're having a dialogue with, right? Maybe as a legal assistant of some kind. And you ask it to summarize the document and it tells you, here are the provisions that are in the agreement. You can even say, is this provision customary in this type of a transaction? The AI tool may have some insights for you in that regard, or it might not, or it might be wrong, but you can certainly ask those types of questions so that you better understand the context of the agreement. You can even ask the AI tool to suggest modifications to the documents that are beneficial to whatever your part of the transaction is, right? So you would have to tell the AI tool what your role is in the transaction. Are you the contractor or are you the customer? Are you the landlord or are you the tenant? You have to give the AI tool a role to play so that it looks at that contract through the eyes of that role and can tell you, here are some things that you might want to be concerned about, and what are some suggestions for changes to this document that would be benefit you. It might even identify negotiating points where you say, here's what you should ask for first. And if they say no, you should fall back to this provision. This would be less good than the first suggestion, but better than what's in the document in and of itself. You can use the AI tool to do that type of dynamic thinking about the contract. So, there are a wide variety of AI tools that are out there, and I'm not an expert at all of these. Okay. I mean, I'm a business owner. I'm using them. I have experimented with some of them. Um, and here are some that I like and the reasons why that you can use them, but there may be others out there, right? And every day there's a new AI company coming online that is offering some type of an AI service particular to business owners, and even have reviewing and drafting and revising and redlining repetitive business contracts. They're out there, right? So every day this stuff is changing. But if you're looking for some generally available, widely available AI tools, here they are. Cider is one of them that I like. It's designed by a lawyer, and it draws upon a variety of AI tools like DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and a couple of others. I can't remember them offhand, but it's sort of like an aggregator of other AI tools. So it's kind of a good place to start to use that. It's called Cider. Perplexity is another one that I like because it gives you specific citations and links to the sources of the information that it has returned based upon your inquiry. One of the problems with AI is that it hallucinates, meaning it makes stuff up that doesn't really exist. Lawyers have gotten in trouble using AI to write legal briefs and memos to court because the AI tool may make up a case as a citation for whatever the statement of law is in the brief or the memorandum, and that case actually doesn't exist. It's hard to believe that it would make that stuff up, but it does. AIs, I think, are designed to be people pleasers, and so that sort of takes over, and it's going to make something up if it thinks it's going to please you. But Perplexity I like because it does give you citations where you can click on the link and go take a look at it and see, where did it get that information? How reliable is that resource? Maybe there's other information at that resource that you'll find helpful, or maybe you'll say this is junk. And that particular point, I don't know that I really am going to put a lot of stock in that. If you are a Google user, Gemini is out there and you can use that. All of these have free versions and then paid versions as well. And the paid versions usually offer you a variety of enhancements, but there are a lot of free ones out there. And Gemini is one of those. And of course, ChatGPT is out there, sort of on the forefront of the AI technology that's out there. I'm not saying one is better than the other. They're all a little bit different. They'll all provide, good information for you, and they all provide slightly different functionality for you. So getting the most out of your AI tool that you're using, right? It's all about the prompts. So if you haven't used an AI tool, you might not know what a prompt is, but you've probably Googled something, right? And so it's like what you're going to type in the search bar at Google, whatever it is that you want Google to go out and find, right? But the prompt is what you tell with the inquiry that you plug in to the AI tool, or whatever it is that you want the AI tool to do, because you can ask it to search for something and ask you to tell you something about a particular issue. You can ask it to write a letter or an email or draft a business contract. You can ask it to do lots of different things. You can ask it to create an image for you that you can use in your marketing. And you want the image to depict certain things that are relevant to whatever the post is that you're going to do, or the marketing piece that you're going to do. So it's all about the prompts, really. You have to be um, specific, right? Questions, instructions that you're giving to the AI tool to uh, create the process. In general, the more detailed the prompt, the better the results are going to be. So you really have to be prepared to provide some detail to the AI tool, right? And it doesn't have to be a simplistic statement like you might think of a Google search, right? It can be complex, right? You can make multiple requests as part of one prompt. And if you put the prompt in and the results that you get aren't exactly what you're looking for, you can basically say, try again and refine whatever the information is that you put into the tool and say, well, I want to know a little bit more about this, or I want that document to focus a little bit more on this other particular issue, whatever it is. It's a back and forth. It's a conversation that you're having with the AI tool. So think of it again as an assistant that walks into your office. You've asked them to prepare a letter. You're reviewing the letter. You find something missing or not quite what you want in the letter. And so you tell the assistant, go back, revise it. And I want you to revise it, taking into consideration these things. That's exactly how you would be working with an AI tool in order to refine and produce the document or the result that's better than you want. You want to draft clean, concise prompts that um, set out specific tasks or questions. Use relatively simple language, not complex language. Um, Give it a persona, right? You have to give the AI tool its point of view, right? So, are you the CFO that's asking the question, the landlord or the business person? You really want to give it a persona um, so that it is going to produce something that fits the persona, whoever it is that you are, right? I am a Subway franchisee. I own a Subway franchise located in somewhere. That's your persona, right? Whatever it is. Um, I am a contractor, or I am a contractor that does residential painting, and um, I want a document that will help me specify what the scope of work is that I've agreed to do with a customer. Prepare a an estimate form that I can use to give to my customers, kind of a thing. You want to give it prompts like that are pretty specific, and give it a persona so that it produces something that really fits for you. And tell it what you want, right? Do you want a summary? Do you want a bullet point, a checklist? You can ask it, whatever for whatever you want. You may want to give it some context, some factual background. What the nature of the transaction is, what you're hoping to achieve, maybe even when you're hoping to achieve it, what the dollar value of the transaction is. The more information that you can give, the better it's going to be. The more of the context along the way. And then you can follow up again, as I had mentioned before, with additional prompts in the event that what you're getting isn't exactly what you want. So, you keep working on it to refine exactly what it is that you want to get in the way of a result if it's not quite addressing what you want. And so that's it. I don't know if there are any